While I was at the local Walmart, I happened to stumble across one of these Sony back button attachments for the PS4. It was featured in my last thrift store game hunting video, and I found it on clearance for only $10. So I figured, what the hell, why not give this thing a try and make a video on it in the process? Because I bought it on clearance, I'm not exactly sure if they are completely phasing this little device out worldwide across all stores, although you can find it online for around the same price I paid if you are interested. That being said, what is this back button attachment? What's the point of it? Well, what this device essentially does is it allows you to program two buttons like square or L3 for example to either the left or the right paddle button here. But why is that necessary? Well, it really isn't exactly. But if you are playing a game where you constantly have to press the L3 button to sprint, for example, like in a lot of shooter games, that can get a little old and tiring. So assigning the L3 on the back button just kind of makes things a little bit easier, especially for those of you who have arthritis or carpal tunnel. Also, it's not uncommon to see people assign the back buttons for commands that allow them to drop shot, jump shot, or reload their firearm without having to hold the controller in an awkward grip or by taking their thumb off the analog. So how exactly do you assign commands to the back button attachment? Well, it's a very easy process. First thing you'll have to do is press in the LCD screen, which is actually a button itself. Hold that down and you'll see that center there flash. Then you can scroll through the list of commands you wish to program by either clicking or holding the paddles until you find the commands you want. When you're done, just click the LCD button and that's it. They also allow you to program 3 different user settings that you can assign by double-clicking the LCD button. That way, if you do decide to use this attachment for a couple different games, you can preset the device to whatever those games are. That way, you won't have to constantly remap the buttons each time you swap games, which is kind of nice, really. Obviously, this thing attaches to the bottom of your controller, and it barely weighs anything. It also features a pass-through for the wired headset. That way, if you do use this device, you're not sacrificing being able to use headsets that utilize that 3.5mm jack. When you clip this onto the controller, it will be snug, and you'll have to apply a little bit of pressure to clip it on fully. But when you have it on, it's not coming off accidentally. Like if you're in the middle of a game, it's not going to wiggle around and it's not going to pop off if you press it a little. You'd have to really go out of your way to accidentally unclip this from your controller. Now, a lot of these controller attachments that I've seen are used over the years, like battery packs, headset attachments, and even the Strikeforce Dominator, a very similar device to this. Well, they can add some bulkiness to the controller, even making the controllers uncomfortable to hold or use for long periods of time. The Sony back button attachment here doesn't really add much to the bulk. It's actually very small, streamlined little device. My fingers do rest naturally for the most part right on top of the buttons, which can present a little bit of a problem. While I can't call this device bulky, I can say that during firefights of shooter games, I have accidentally pressed one of the paddles at least a dozen times in the week I've used this device off and on, and it has gotten me killed in the process numerous times. I can't 100% put the blame on this device. I guess I do tend to squeeze the controller when I'm in a high-stress situation, so you know what, that's kinda on me. But still, dying because of something I didn't intend to do is, well, frustrating to say the least. Now, one could say, well, Foxy, how come you're not placing your fingers above the buttons? Well, that's all well and good in theory, but it's not comfortable for me. It's really unnatural. For you or someone else, it may not present an issue, but for me, I can't do it personally. I assume most people who would buy something like this might play a lot of shooters, more specifically titles like Call of Duty, Battlefield, maybe Far Cry, hell, I don't know. I only say that because Scuff Controllers have been around for, I think, like a decade now, and those controllers have paddles on the back, which this device more or less mimics for a fraction of the cost. Now, those Scuff controllers have been heavily popularized and promoted by tons of YouTubers back in the day who play mostly FPS games. I think even today, Scuff controllers are still widely used and very popular in the competitive shooter game crowd. However, one genre of game that a device like this completely excels with is actually racing games. Why? Well, because if you race a manual car, you can use the buttons on the back to up and down shift through gears like you would with paddle shifters in modern cars, and I just thought that was the coolest thing. So while technically you can use this device for really any game you want, I had the most fun and the most success using this with racing games. There's really not a whole lot more to say about this, so let's shift over to my final thoughts. The Sony back button attachment works great. It does exactly what it's supposed to do, and it seems to be made quite well. I don't exactly see this breaking on me anytime soon. It's not bulky whatsoever, and it's not going to affect the weight of your controller enough to make any sort of impact. For the $10 I spent, it's definitely worth looking into if you can for that same price. It's a very cheap, easy way to turn your controller into a low-budget Scuff without having to pay $150+ for even the basic, most cheapest Scuff controller model they carry. You kind of have to take this for what it's worth. Maybe if you are new to the idea and you do pick this up and fall in love with it and the whole back button concept, you might want to save up your money for a Scuff controller if you do plan to use the back buttons on a regular basis. I personally don't see myself doing that. For games where I snipe constantly, I may decide to use this attachment, but primarily, I only see myself using this for racing games simply due to the fact that, well, that's the one I had the most fun using it with, and it works extremely well for racing games. So with that said, everyone, I hope you enjoyed the review. Maybe in the future I might look into that FPS Dominator thing, because in a way it's Sony's direct competition, and I'm curious as to how they compare, to be honest. The Dominator also has a bunch of mods and additions that affect how guns behave, like anti-recoil, adjustable turbo, and a quickscope mod, which I don't exactly understand how that works. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this review. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day, and I hope to see you next time. Take care.